Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 3 of Campfire Chats. This is George Creasy speaking, and I have with me the lovely and incredible team of Mr. General Cody and Mr. Chaplain Bradley as well. And we have a lovely guest joining us tonight. It is Mr. Pingu, also on the dev team. Hello, one and all. How's everybody doing?
Pretty
How's it
fine, hello.
going? Good to see you, Pingu.
Hello.
Doing well.
So we want to thank each and every one that wants to join in this lovely video chat because we have an awesome set of questions and community questions that we wanted to address with this episode, while we also get to enjoy a little bit of 1776 going on in the background for those that are watching this on YouTube. So first and foremost, Mr. Pingu, we want to thank you very much for joining the Campfire Games team, and we were hoping to get your version of events, your story of going from an individual modding scene to now being part of our development. So why don't you speak a little bit about that?
So, it actually first started with another game. Then I've made some modeling in there and started to learn model about 5 to 6 years ago. And then it was a little pause for 2 years, and then I started actually a project from on my own, which was, hey, can you mod War of Rights? Because I was playing this game for a long time.
Awesome.
And then I suddenly kicked in, hey, you can extract the files and stuff like that. You can decode them. Why don't you try something? And then I tried to implement actually a first head of the Napoleonic Wars, which I've made, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, I started a game, booted up, went into drill camp, selected the unit, and it was working. Then the first event, actually, I tried this mod, about balancing and stuff like that. And then after that, I started to make uniforms and trying to get them into the game. But first, it was their problems that I actually asked the team to may help me with that. Is that the characters were not moving, and I thought, what? How is this not possible? How can I make this so that it's actually working in CryEngine? Because I had no knowledge of CryEngine.
When you're talking about breaking into the code, I'm imagining just a whole bunch of matrix text starting to flow down the screen.
It basically yes, I can actually that's what happens. It's I extracted it, and just 5 minutes of text went down the PC to extract those files, and everything. What have I done? And then the files were extracted, and I was able to change them, but only locally for me, so it wasn't affected by the server or anything.
Well, Pingu, in your case, what draws you perhaps to the Revolutionary War period?
Actually, it's the Hessians. Surprise, surprise.
Nice.
And the British Grenadiers. And I've seen actually some footage of the 10th Regiment of Foot, and I thought, hey, I like that uniform. Why are we not picking a campaign or a setting which is sets or is where the 10th Regiment Foot is placed actually? And then, of course, with the Hessians and with the Maryland, it came together actually, because Bradley here said something. Oh, we can do this campaign, and then he suggested the different regiments for it, and I think you, George, as well, then kicked in and said, "Oh, I want to get get those units in because they made a vital role in it."
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I would say that when we were originally discussing celebrating with some means the 1776 bicentennial, or what is the term more properly for this upcoming anniversary?
I think bicentennial's right, isn't it? I just say the 200 semi quincentennial.
There we
The
go. Yes.
250th anniversary.
There we
There
go.
we are. Yeah. So the 250th anniversary, we as a team decided we wanted to do something to celebrate it, and it just made sense to kind of focus on the year of 1776 based off of, what we wanted to aim for with that. So when that was proposed, I looked into the various battles that were possibly available for the year of 1776, and I think we as a team kind of coalesced around the idea of the Battle of Long Island, which was, one of the first major battles that I want to say preceded Bunker Hill and what have you. That was later on, and was really the first big invasion of the British, which also allowed us to feature a good chunk of different units on both sides. Um, and so I had a big long list of all the folks based off of the period orders of battle of possible British and Hessian regiments, and we kind of nailed down some possibilities that way.
Yeah, I think we were especially intrigued by the events. I think it was at the Battle of White Plains. This is all during the kind of the New York and New Jersey campaigns, and how it is that General Washington is depending on this small unit of Delaware and Maryland men to basically hold off the entire British Army. And so that's kind of how we got to the what they're known as, I think, is the Immortal 400 with the Maryland guys.
Yes, exactly.
And sure enough, you have Hessians and Redcoats kind of closing in on these group of men as they do a relatively orderly retreat and really do save Washington's army there.
Yeah, the main spot that kind of got them that name was based off of this little area on what is now the southwest corner of 3rd Avenue between 7th and 9th Streets. There was a little log house that was used as a possible fortification against Indian attacks from that quadrant. And so they kind of used that as their holding place where they prevented the British from advancing while the rest of the army was retreating. So just 400 men basically held off 5 times their number against, with several charges against them. So it was quite a feat, really, that helped the rest of the army be able to escape from the kind of British pincer movement that was happening at that point. So going on from there, was there any particular things that we collectively learned while we were working on 1776?
Well, I can tell you, talking about the Hessians, I think I've learned quite a bit about them. I've been skimming through a book by Dr. Baer called Hessians, and just learning about who the Hessians were. Because the stereotype of the Hessians, and you hear this in game in the chat, and on our Discord, the idea that we have about Hessians is that they are this elite force of mercenaries. And come to find out, these are a lot of them are literally conscripts. These are farmers and fugitives that have kind of been enrolled in the service of the King George III, and just learn who they are has been really fascinating for me.
Yeah, and that was during a period where Germany was still very much fragmented. It was the end of the Holy Roman Empire period, kind of on its last gasps there. And so a lot of the individual princedoms were very much on their own and constantly fighting amongst each other. And it got to the point that a lot of them had become very militarized societies, including the Principality of Hesse-Kassel. Just a lot of the principalities had become very militarized states, even more so than what the later Frederick princes would implement later on. But it was basically their primary means of money making of those princes, and for the whole state was by sending out their guys as mercenaries, their available population as mercenaries to both near and far campaigns.
And just the logistics of moving these troops across Europe and then to another continent. It's just remarkable the amount of work that was done. Real fascinating.
Done by the British Empire.
And speaking of, it's kind of funny because George III was actually related to Frederick II, and Frederick II actually tried to prevent the mercenaries from getting sent out of Germany. Like, he banned them from going through certain areas, so they had to go kind of like the long way around to eventually get to their port of call and then
That's right.
get over to England.
Wow.
And it's interesting because a lot of the players will say that, these are Prussians. No, actually,
No,
the
not
Prussian.
Prussian.
Yeah, he was actually pretty much against this and had some pretty strong words about it.
And if you look actually close on the uniform, you can see on the Hessian officer there is the national flag of the Hessians, still used today. So there's the bear with claws, white bear with claws, and the crown on it with the blue background and the white and red stripes.
Yeah, it is fun, and that's why I'm part of the reason why I'm such a fan of history is all those little details in terms of the material culture of the times, where all the way through into World War One and perhaps even a bit of World War Two as well, you see in German uniforms across the princedoms a lot of that provincial insignia and iconography carry through the eras. Like in World War One, a lot of the units were still, as much as Germany had been unified, still had very provincial uniforms going on.
What about you, Cody? Did you learn anything in this journey for 1776?
Yeah, so I mean, after playing the game and getting a few comments, I'll put the comment up on screen. I had to do a quick Google search to just kind of see if this was a real thing, but with the tricorn, the hat placement was actually tilted to the side. So originally, if it was worn straight on, you would not be able to shoulder arms without the rifle actually hitting the corner of your hat. So they angled it sideways, and then another thing I learned too was that it actually acted as a way to get if it was raining or so forth, there was a place for the water to travel to. So you can angle your hat to where the water's pouring out the backside, so it's not getting on you per se or leaking on you. So a lot of cool, minute details. And right now, I think all the hats are worn straight on, but maybe we can have some variation there with the hat placement eventually.
Actually placed on the a little bit rotated actually on the head.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so
For the animation.
So no wet shoulders.
Yeah. And then there was some questions in the community in regards to cartridges versus powder horns. Bradley, do you have some comments in that regard?
No, I don't know nothing about it. That was the actual question I had. Why are we using cartridges, and where is the powder horn at?
Well, fortunately speaking, powder horns, while they did exist in the era, weren't very good for military purpose, because it's basically holding a grenade on your person that could get exploded by a stray bullet or a stray spark of any sort. So it's just a huge danger in comparison to just using paper cartridges, which have been in use since at least the 1400s.
Now wait a minute.
Yes.
You mean to tell me that my great-grandpappy
Yes. Oh my
was
God.
using modern technology in his day, and
Well,
not
modern for the
powder
time.
flask?
More likely than not, yes, they were just using paper cartridges because that's how they were issued to the troops. So perhaps there were a few of the light infantry and kind of it's the predecessors to the not mudrakers, but bushwhackers sort of units that may have still been using powder horns, just from home, because it was an easy means for like hunters and the mountaineers and what have you, the mountain men, excuse me, to just load and get going. But in terms of military, it was paper cartridges was what was issued because it had somewhere in the range of 115 grains of powder that was in it, in which the first bit of that would be going into the pan, whereas the rest would be going down the barrel and loaded with the round or rounds, based on book and ball, that might have been loaded in afterwards.
And also, I think from a consistency standpoint too, you know exactly what each
Yes.
cartridge is capable of, as to where with the powder horn, you kind of have to eyeball. It's like, oh, is that enough gunpowder? Do I need a little bit more? So I'm sure a lot less waste too in that regard. And
Yeah,
more-
that's
more
another big
consistent
thing.
shots.
Plus, if you're loading your gun with a powder horn, if there's any sort of stray sparks or what have you in the barrel, which is very often a thing with gunpowder weapons, then you're just asking for it to explode in the barrel, go up, and then start exploding your powder horn in your hand. So it's just a lot more danger than it's worth.
Well, that's a cool 4th of July display.
Yeah, it works once, and that's about it.
So speaking of that, another thing I learned too, I've got a few comments in game talking about, hey, we're the Grenadiers. Where's our grenades at? Do you historians have some information as to why that is not the case?
Yes. Let's see. Pingu, do you want to herald that one?
Oh, grenades are a beautiful thing actually, but you don't want the grenades to actually go off in a line. They had grenades, yes. I think George has a better time period where they had grenades. But it was soon discovered that they're pretty, let's say, they're not useful in a line when you want to light a grenade and suddenly that guy gets shot and your line has a big hole in it.
Yes.
So for grenades, yes, the Grenadier had them. We have also modeled, or I have also modeled the accoutrements of the Grenadiers, which is the match case and some other, so a cord which is on the back of the cartridge box on the belt actually, which you can also see in the game when the soldier has no backpack. Those things were still issued and were the pride of the Grenadiers, but the grenade itself, it was pretty much thrown away, or this was just a thing for boarding actions on the ship, for example, or when you're defending a fort, but not on the line battles of the 1700s or 1800s.
Oh,
Are you telling me Empire Total War was not being accurate with their
No,
Grenadiers?
No, it's not.
That's where I got my sources from, so okay. Good to know.
Yeah, as epic as the idea is of the Grenadiers in one mass just chucking a whole bunch of grenades over the line, as Pingu was saying, it was definitely more of a hazard than a help in terms of even 18th century warfare. So they had long since gone out of use in terms of general warfare or general line warfare, but were certainly still extant during the period and were issued out as needed during, as Pingu was mentioning, shipboarding actions in defense of or in the assault of forts, those sorts of things. So there was use of grenades, but in very select circumstances. However, the tradition and the naming of Grenadiers did carry forward and became more so just a byline of who were the assault troops of the regiment and who were the big badasses that everybody was. And if you're a big tall guy, you would probably get sent over to the Grenadier company.
All the OG Tom Brady's that had an arm, I guess.
Yes, of course.
Throwing dimes. So, Pingu, congrats again. I'm so happy that you chose your birthday to be on the same day as the 1776 event.
That was not my choosing.
Well,
it was
either way,
chosen by the team actually.
Yeah. Well, either way, exciting day to celebrate. But yeah, I mean, kind of going into the actual modeling of the stuff that you've made, what was kind of the most challenging aspect of it? And, how were you able, I guess the second question was, how were you able to validate the historical accuracy of those weapons and uniforms?
So for a lot of things, we have our historians here. which makes the research, and I'm quite happy that they are doing the research for it. Because research is actually the biggest part of making a 3D model, for example. For the brown bass or the Portland pattern, there are different versions of it, which were used in the American Revolutionary War, and also for other guns like the Charleville and stuff. And for getting the historically accurate portrayal of that, for example, of that firearm, is to get it. Neither you get that thing in real life, and I get into my hands and look at it, or I get photos and or plans, stuff like that. Measurements are extremely important on that topic, and of course the firearm has to be in a pretty decent shape, almost in new condition if possible, which is not possible. So
So the first challenge on our historical side of things is choosing the right things to send to modelers like Pingu in order to, not waste time, not waste effort on what's going to be eventually implemented.
That is one of the worst feelings. I know I'm not the only one who's done this. To send a reference and then realize after the fact, you know what? That probably wasn't the best reference I could have sent. These, especially when it comes to weaponry.
And I guess too, I mean, with these being in such limited supply, especially in pristine condition, I know, Bradley, you go to the archives pretty often. How hard is it to get access to some of these weapons?
It's really hard. It's one thing to be able to work with textiles, but it's a whole nother ballpark when you're talking about firearms, because you're looking at a much smaller group of collections. Probably the best one that we've used for War of Rights is all the way up in Chickamauga, and that's behind lock and key. It's behind glass, so you're not even able to really pick them up and hold them. So it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get real friendly with the curator if you want to go anywhere past those.
I'm sure you're
got to go on a few dates, have a few laughs.
And I'm sure your photo quality is also significantly improved, taking snapshots of those pretty awesome weaponry in those archives.
The biggest problem is actually to get the weapon right. So, for example, how thick is the stock? In which shape is the stock made? So there are different kinds of in games which has the weapon in it, but the weapon is not 100% accurate how it's actually designed or portrayed, and that's what I'm trying actually to do, is getting the most references for it, or even get the real piece. For example, the gun which I bought.
And talking about references, I know Bradley, in our trailer, there's a very famous artist that has sparked a lot of creativity. I want to speak on that and kind of some of the, as a team as a whole, just getting some inspiration for adding some of these regiments to the game. What is that?
For sure, Don Troiani. His artwork is, not only is it fantastic as reference, but it's inspirational. As we see in the trailer, there are a couple of shots there that when I saw one of his paintings, I said, I think we can do something like this for the trailer. He's an inspiration. He's a remarkably good artist, but he is a researcher in his own right. And he was definitely a source for us. Pingu interacted with him even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but so I was talking to him a little bit because I said to him, hey, I'm working on this unit or on those units. Do you have some reference images? Because I saw some paintings of it. And as I have learned, he's actually, every painting is a human living, or is a living being which has the cloth. So he's not actually painting it from from out of imaginary or out of his head, for example, he paints the people in real life. So he has a sketch, he has the poses from them, and the people has the clothes, the clothes.
He has people modeling for him in real
Yes,
life
he has the people
with
modeling for
correct
him in real
clothing
life.
and all that.
Yes. So
He'll do casting calls every once in a while, and he will say, "I want somebody that's 5'7" and 150 pounds." You know, like he's specific. He doesn't want anybody above the age of 30 for this particular painting he's doing.
Wow.
He's, you know, he's really specific about that.
and I wrote him a message, and he said, "Hey, yeah, of course I can help you with that." And suddenly I've got a whole line of images of Hessians von Losberg soldiers and the stuff cartridge boxes and the gorget, which is pretty hard to find. A piece or an image of it, which is in really good shape because of different shapes and the damage which was done to them. Because the officers were wearing them all the time, and also on the battlefield.
That's incredible.
So, yeah.
I hope you got his autograph as well. I'm
No, actually not.
Oh.
But I got the picture from him.
I was about to say,
Working.
I've got his autograph on a print.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
so he is so very gracious, you know, to talk to people when they ask about, well, where did you get this source from?
We acquired some stuff from him, some accoutrements from him, which he sold.
Yes, he went
So-
on a huge purge of his Civil War period items, if I recall.
Yep. But I've got some pretty good stuff from him, which I can use for my impressions. So
Too
this-
cool. Putting it to good use. That is awesome. But yeah, Bradley, what about you with this event and so forth? What I guess in particular when it comes to the rifles, I know there's a lot of questions about the accuracy. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, you know, everybody's wondering, well, is this just a reskin? You know, are these muskets basically just the 1842? And the answer is no. They are their own unique muskets. And basically, to make a long story short, the muskets in 1776 are roughly 25% less accurate than the 1842. So for all of you COs out there that are calling for volleys right now at 400 yards, you're not going to accomplish anything except to lighten your cartridge boxes.
Oh man, yeah, those are some tough shots. I even saw some yesterday. Our regiment was probably 30 yards in front of another line, and we were getting team killed by them. I'm sure by accident, but those rounds are hitting us. So definitely something
Yeah,
to be conscious of.
But that's the thing actually, because the balls back then were pretty undersized. In Civil War time period, the balls or a 69 caliber ball was actually almost 69 caliber, and Revolutionary time, also on the Hessian side, the balls were 50 caliber or even less.
You know, the 1842, that's a 69 caliber. When it's a bucking ball, it's a 69 caliber ball with 3 or 4 pellets in there. And then you know, when you go back to 1776, you know, you've got a Charleville, and the ball there is maybe 64 or 65. It's smaller.
Yeah, because they had a lot more to worry about in regards to the fouling of the weapon. Gunpowder was to manufacture quality compared to during the Civil War period, so there was more fouling that was caused by that, and so they had a few reasons behind having it be a bit smaller compared to the sort of weaponry and bullet sizes that we were used to in our usual period of 1862.
And there are even units in the American Civil War that prefer that 42 musket because if you're planning on firing off all 40 rounds, by the end of that cartridge box, your rifled musket is going to be really tough. to load because of the fouling. It gets tighter and tighter and tighter. Whereas with the smoothbore, it's a lot easier to load for long periods of time.
There was some questions in the community as to the lack of musicians in the current limited time event. Pingu, can you speak as to why we lost out on those?
We have done the models, but we have no tunes for them for that time period.
Yep.
For now. So that's the main reason.
And this is how it works with all of these kind of time-limited things we do. We have a million ideas. It's not for a lack of creativity. It's a lack of time. And we just run out of time. And we kind of have a priority list. There's a few things that we really wanted to see in game. Musicians was up on the list. Also artillery.
Yeah, that was the big thing, is that with the artillery, we would have to get entirely new artillery models that we didn't have anybody to do, or anybody that was free to be able to do in time. We'd have to get entirely new uniforms and probably animations also done, which there was just not enough time to get in comparison to the basic standards of the infantry and all those new things that had to be done.
Yeah, and there's always kind of the nagging question for us is resources. Do we want to use the resources to develop a cannon that only fires solid shot, which we don't even have, that will only be in a 2-week event? Or would we rather use those resources on a cannon for, say, the M1841 6-pounder that should be at Shepherdstown, or the 20-pounder Parrott gun that was at Antietam?
Both of which are models we do currently have, just don't have implemented just yet.
So Pingu, what you got next for us? 1776 is a success, I think we can say. What do you have for us coming up on War of Rights? Back to the Civil War.
So for the Civil Wars, actually, I'm working with Pat in close relationship to work on uniforms and characters and small details on the uniforms. For example, new models now. At the moment, the line looks kind of static. Everybody's looks the same, and I and Pat want to change that. To change it to a better look, to make it more period accurate, actually, and giving them small details to them, like American-Mexican War, backpacks, drum canteens, and the whole line which you can imagine.
Yeah, no, that's something that you may not notice it when you play the game, but your brain does, right? When you're standing behind a line and they're firing volleys, you don't have to be a historian or a reenactor to notice that everybody's accoutrements are exactly the same if you're looking at them from behind. But we know from photographs and even written correspondence and this sort of thing that these are soldiers who are going to wear their gear in a way that is comfortable for them, and so they should not look like clones when they're in a line together. And so that human aspect and the individual creativity, I guess you could say, of wearing their gear is definitely something that I think will take it to a whole nother level visually.
And we're at a give or take about the 3/4 mark of the overall development of War of Rights. And so now that we're getting more and more of the base game design elements done, that means that there is more resources and time frame able to be devoted to the more individualized and specific nuances of things like that we'll be able to devote in future. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining us today for the lovely questions and answers of episode 3 here of Campfire Chats. Once again, I want to thank all the members that partake in all this, and especially all the members of the team here that were participating. Once again, thanks to General Cody, Mr. Bradley, Chaplain Bradley, and Mr. Pingu, one of the newest members of the War of Rights team, for joining us. Once again, my name is George Creasy, and if you haven't already purchased War of Rights, we have a 50% off sale going on right now as part of the Steam Summer Sale. So get in there, get a bit of fun going on while the 1776 event is going on for the next few weeks. So thank you all once again for joining us, and hope you have a fantastic day on the battlefield.
All right, thanks, y'all. Take care.
Ciao, ciao.